fundamental steps. Decide, declare, document, and develop the skills and the leaders, and you will reach the top. The question you've got to say to yourself is, do you truly believe in the decision that you've made? You decided to get a ticket here. Some people haven't turned up. They stopped here. You decided to get a ticket. You decided to go all out. You decided to play and take massive action. What's the declaration? I am going to complete Success Summit Online by Sunday. Right? Are you going to document it? Some of you guys are already doing the stories and you're tagging me in. Like, just finished day one, biggest breakthrough, biggest takeaway, biggest tip was da-da-da-da-da. And then tag me. Why not? When people see that you're doing something that they're not to get what they can't get, whoo! Guess what they do?
Surprise even.
Oh, what are they going to do next? What's their next story? What's their next post? What's their next move? What's their next live? When you do what everyone else does, they're like, yeah, it's just someone else doing the same thing. You've got to stand out. You've got to be crazy, be weird. You've got to be odd. The number one is an odd number. Not a coincidence. If you want to be number one, you've got to be odd. You've got to stand out. You've got to be different. You've got to document. And you've got to develop. Are we ready for our... Oh, lovely. All right, so, super excited about this, guys. And if you're getting value so far, if you believe you've had more value than the price of the ticket that you paid, do me a favor and just drop a 5 in the chat, just as kind of like a high five. That would be really, really cool. I'd love to see you guys see who's had more value than the price of the ticket that they paid so far. See? Awesome. You guys. All right, so here we go. Let's get into this. So, I am super, super, super grateful, honored, blessed to be able to call this couple, our first couple of this event, new friends, but people that I have been listening to since I was 5 years old, maybe 4 years old. My dad can put me wrong. So imagine this. You're in the network marketing profession. And let me know if has anyone got kids? Let me know if you've got kids in the chat. Just say like 1 boy, 2 girls. 2 girls, that's it. 1 boy, that's it. Whatever. Right? Let me know. So, woo! Torin's got 6. Beast mode. So, imagine this. You're a hustler. You're a network marketing professional, soon to be professional. And you have a kid and you've got to go to an event and you have to take the kid to the event with you. Whether it's a coffee shop meeting, a hotel lobby meeting, a small hotel meeting, a big hotel meeting. So, you carry the kid in like a baby chair, whatever you do for a 4-year-old kid. I don't know. Maybe they can walk on their own. Probably. They've got a baby seat. So you open the back door of the car. You put them on the baby seat. You put the belt on them. You get in the car. You start to drive. Now, when most people drive, the radio's on. But for the smart ones out there, you do not play the radio on the car from now on. Oh, you are wasting so much valuable time. You play podcasts. You play CDs. You play audibles. Audibles or podcasts. If you haven't checked out my podcast, you can go to Network Marketing Ninja Podcast. Now, as a kid, the radio was all negative and there was no podcasts. So they used to listen to these things called cassettes. Right? Cassettes. And the cassettes were like, you play it, and then about halfway through, please turn over to side B for more from Jim Rohn. And you would take it out, you would turn it around, and then you would put it back in. If you wanted to rewind, you had to put like a pencil in the cassette to rewind it. Who remembers that? Right? So, imagine my dad, my mum are going to an event. I'm on the back seat, and all you could hear is this guy's voice, and my dad being like, "Whoa, that's awesome!" And like, hey, weird. Whoa, like pulls over, starts taking notes, carry on going, like, whoa, mind blown. Julie, did you hear my mom's called Julie? Jules, did you hear that? Like, oh my God, this is amazing. I never seen my dad had his mind blown so much. And over the years, I was like, Dad, who the is this guy you're listening to? He went, oh, his name's Larry Thompson. Absolute legend. I love him. I love his energy. I love his story. I love his training. I love his vibe. I love everything about him. And as I grew up, I used to always hear this guy's name, Larry Thompson, Larry Thompson, Larry Thompson, Larry Thompson, Larry Thompson. Until I found out that he was at the same meeting that Jim Rohn was at when he joined his network marketing company. And Larry ended up spending more time personally with Jim Rohn than anyone else in the network marketing profession. Now, if you don't know who Jim Rohn is, oh boy, your life is going to change by the end of this year when you start listening and reading to Jim Rohn. J-I-M, that's Jim. It's not Jimmy, like it's Jim. Rohn, R-O-H-N.
Okay, what's the name again,
haven't
sir?
heard of him, like, whoo!
Your name?
The guy is responsible for multiple companies.
Morgan, I should know by now as much as I see you.
The guy is responsible for more people that I know who have changed their lives in network marketing than anyone else that I can think of. And it's not just Larry, but his wife Taylor have now partnered, and they are giving so much value generically to the network marketing space. They're incredible human beings. They've made millions of dollars from the network marketing profession. Even more importantly, help serve the industry. And the industry today is what it is, partly because of these two individuals. I cannot tell you how lucky we are to have them join us. They are insanely good. I want you to write down the Millionaire Training in your notes. We'll come back to it after. Pay full attention. Do not get distracted, because I want to introduce you to my new great friends, Mr. Larry Thompson and Taylor Thompson.
Hey, you gotta, thank you. Your audio was being lost as you were introducing us, and you were saying wonderful things about us, and I thought I can't hear it. So would you mind repeating it?
So anyway, we were trying to get on and off, so I hope that our connection is good. But what we did hear is love what you're saying
about Simon, your dad.
About your dad and about blah, 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 blah. Oh my gosh, that was so funny. So
that blah, 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 blah that you were hearing, I get that from my wife. Blah, 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 blah. She's talking about what I'm saying. You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh. Well, we're so happy to be here. Thank you so much, Frazer, for having this event. Thank you so much for inviting Larry and I to be here with you and your community. It's certainly an honor, certainly a privilege, and we just want to thank you for trusting us to be able to communicate and to be able to share maybe some value to your group here. So just to tell you a little bit about us, you want to start?
No, go ahead.
So
yeah, did you see that? Okay. Go ahead.
So lots of times, because whenever we talk about Jim Rohn, we talk about Larry. Larry goes back 54 years. It'll be May the 4th, 54 years he's been in this space. But he was my mentor. He was my mentor from afar. And I got those tapes that Frazer was talking about. That's what I got 28 years ago whenever I got my first distributor kit. And I came into this learning, teaching environment. I had those audio cassette tapes that I listened to, and I didn't even know what they were saying because, here I was. I was just a mom. I was a brand new mom. I just wanted mom care versus daycare. I was just looking for that way to make an extra $800 every month. And I came into this environment. I got on these products, and they handed me these tapes. And so I too was like Simon, that I was able to hear these tapes. I came into this environment, and we're going to be talking about this because environment is stronger than will. And whenever you come into a space, and we call it an incubator, whenever you can come into a place, whenever somebody like me that was just a mom who didn't have any business kind of experience, and you got to think about 28 years ago, that was before internet, that was before cell phone, that was before all the amazing technology things that we have access to now. That wasn't possible. Our phones were hardwired to the wall, but there was this culture that was created that allowed for me to grow up, to be incubated, to bloom where I was planted, and allow for somebody like me to grow up and have not only that $800 a month and on into 6 and 7 figures, but Larry was my mentor, from afar, and he handed me those millionaire training tapes and I took off. But let's talk about this and how all this plays into where we are now and why environment is so important even now.
Yeah, and we'll share some things with you here today that hopefully will help your audience identify the audience language behavior that's happening today, because that's key. And I'll give you some checkpoints on that. The checkpoints or check marks as we go here and see, so you can compare with where we are today, so you can see the unique opportunity that we have. But my story does go back 54 years ago. And when I got a call, a fateful call like so many of us have got, before, and I got a call about 6:30 at night, and it was from a construction worker friend of mine, Mike Polar. And he was talking to me about going to a meeting and learning about an opportunity, and he's blah, 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 and I'm not paying much attention until he says, well, if you got to go with me, he said, you got to decide the next 15 minutes because we're going to take a half an hour to get there and they're going to start on time. And I said, well, where we're going? He said, we're going to go over to the Hyatt Hotel in San Jose, California. And I perked up. And I perked up because I used to drive by that hotel all the time doing construction work. And it was on a real funky intersection, 101 and 1st Street there. I never will forget it. And it was a big hotel. And I used to go by and I'd see all the cars and I'd see the people and they looked different and everything and they acted different from what I could tell from the people walking by. And they had that port to share, where you drive your car underneath and they open doors for you. I thought, wow, that would be something. And just to be able to do that one time in my life, just one time. And you got to realize, I never finished formal schooling, okay? In America, it's called high school, and I only got to grade 10. You got to go through 12 to graduate. I only got to 10. And the only reason I got to 10 was because we had to do oral book reports back then. Now, I don't know today if anybody even knows how to have to read to get through formal school anymore, but before you had to read a book, you had to write about it, and then you had to walk across the stage there and share it with your classmates. Now, I grew up in a very small community, so there was one grammar school, first school, then it was a middle school, and then it was a high school. And I went to school with these kids the most of my life, so I knew them. I did the work. I did it, okay? But what I didn't do here, Frazer, is I couldn't walk across the stage and repeat that book report or recite it to my classmates. And after 2 years in a row, because I was so shy, that was the problem. I was a pretty good student, but I was very shy. And after 2 years of that, I wasn't going to graduate high school, and it was okay because I wasn't going to go to college or university anyway. People didn't do that back then, okay? And I knew I was going to get into construction work, and that's what happened. I quit school one day. The next day, I'm working construction work. And you got to understand, I loved it. I loved construction work. I loved it then, and I loved it, quite frankly, as much as I do now, because I enjoyed it. I got a knack for it, and I was good at it, and I loved doing it, and I looked forward to it. And it never occurred to me once in my life to think about doing anything other than construction. That may sound strange to you, but I liked it, and I liked it. My family, I was working with my family and all that stuff. It was a great, great environment. So I told Mike, I said, call me back in 15 minutes, and I'll let you know if I'm going to go with you. And the reason I wanted to go, because I wanted to go to that hotel, okay? But I was a long-haired hippie construction worker. No education, no self-confidence, no self-esteem as I stand. And I'm going to go to my first hotel in my life, and I'm having a bad hair day, And what do I do? So I get up there, and I do everything I can to see what I can make it work. Okay, I can make this work. I wouldn't have cared. I just tied it up in a ponytail if I had to. I would go to that hotel. And I get to that meeting, Frazer, and I got to tell you, Mike was going to park out the parking lot. And I said, no. You're going to come over here, okay? You're going to come over here, and the guy's going to open my door. And it was so funny, because when I stepped outside of that car and that parking lot in front of the front door of that big fancy hotel, they had heard about long-haired hippies, but they hadn't seen too many of them. And I tell you, they were just stunned silence, man. And I got out of the car and I realized what was going on, so I did the best I could. I flipped my hair, did the appropriate scratch, and moved on in. And as I got into back to that meeting there, I never will forget it. It was just life-changing walking in there, because they had this big, gigantic pool, and people that had pools back then, okay? And it was so big, and I was just blown away. I couldn't wait to to get back the next day and tell the guys on the job what happened. And got in the meeting room, and two very, very unique people I met that night that has changed not only my life, but thousands of other people's lives because of that meeting. And the first one, Bobby Depew. Bobby Depew is the original strategist and tacticians of our space. Okay, you know anything about Jim Rohn? He had a major effect on Jim Rohn, certainly a major effect on me. But his teaching, he used to be a school teacher, and he had a way of sharing those fun, simple things in a way that you capture. And I'm sitting there in that meeting room, Frazer, and I'm telling you, I felt like I was the only one in the room. And he was talking directly to me. I wasn't thinking about me doing this at all. I was just thinking about the experience, and I was excited about the hotel. But at the end of the meeting, he got me. And here's what happened. He said, listen, he said, it's obvious that we're having a lot of fun here and making a lot of money. You guys know what I mean. You can tell when people are having fun and making money. You can tell it. You can smell it. You can taste it. It's freedom. You don't have to cram it down the throats. It's freedom. And so he said, I would like to promise you that you can make the money that we're making, but I can't. He said, but I can promise you this. He said, what if it turns out for you just 10% what it's turned out for us? And I got to tell you, I sat back on my chair and thought about that because I knew that when I was looking around, these guys are making money, 10%. You know what I did? The long-haired hippie construction worker with no education, no self-confidence, no self-esteem, I defaulted and gave away 90% of the opportunity in my mind and accepted 10%. But you know what? It was the best thing that ever happened because that's all I could think of. I couldn't comprehend the Lamborghini bikini conversation, as I like to call it. I could comprehend 10% of that Lamborghini and bikini situation. Okay? And so that was one thing that happened. The second thing that happened, you talked about Jim Rohn here. There was another guest there that night, not the only one, but another guest that was at the same meeting, and we joined the same company the same night, and it was Jim Rohn. Okay? We joined Best Line Products the exact same night from the very same meeting. Now, 90 days later, now by the way, Bobby wanted him to be vice president of trading, but Jim, he taught me a very, very valuable lesson. I didn't know it that night. I learned it later on. He said, I'm not going to come in here as vice president. He said, these people already got their methodology and their leadership going. I'm going to build an organization, and then I'll prove myself, and then you can put me in that spot, which happened. Okay? And so most of you know Jim as a business philosopher, a writer. There's nobody like him. There's just nobody like him. Okay? But I know him as a distributor. We did meetings together, okay, as distributors and signing people up and setting the product displays up and all the stuff that you had to do back in those days. But Bobby and Jim took me, this long-haired hippie, uneducated long-haired hippie, no self-confidence, as I stated, took me under their wings. And it took me years to figure out why they took such an interest in me. But I figured it out after a while, and I do it now too. I can see it in people. That little bit of, and I know a lot of your listeners out here can, that little bit of extra desire, you can sense it. You know, you were talking about the sighting and documenting and, and developing. You're talking about those things here and just before you introduced us. And I'm going to tell you something. That little bit of extra desire, that little bit of extra self-determination and motivation, that little bit of extra teachability, they saw it in me. And however, I can see it in people now, but I didn't know that they saw it in me. And they also had a financial sidebar to that one. They knew, you got to realize, the audience back then was three-piece suits, whiskey drinking, cigar smoking, white shoes, Cadillac driving, hardcore salespeople. That's what it was. And now I'm the long-haired hippie construction worker, and they don't want me in the room. And they figured out, they knew, they didn't figure out, they knew it. If we can get this guy, this hippie, to get successful, say if he can do it, you can do it. And so that was my whole start in the entire profession, and that led me all the way through to 1978 when I walked into another meeting. I'm sharing this story with you because it's pertinent to your listeners, because it's been a journey, and it's been a journey of consistent growth, ups and downs, ins and outs. Anyone that just thinks you arrive because you get the
I want your listeners to understand what we're talking about here is relevant to you right this minute. We're all going to tie this up in a really nice, pretty bow for you as we unfold this. So stay with us as we're talking about these things, because this all ties into where you are currently and how you build your business based around these fundamentals.
And a big part of these fundamentals, guys, is always understanding who your audience is, what the language that they speak to each other. Okay, the language they talk to each other, not the network marketing language that we talk to each other. Okay, that's one of the biggest mistakes that I see. Even builders, when I'm talking 7-figure a year earners, they talk to their prospects the way that we talk to each other. Okay, you got to talk to that audience and speak to them in a language that they understand, the one that they're talking to each other about.
So I think this part is real important to have in place. Whenever you talk about language, and I want to point out something that Larry shared in his story, and he talked about whenever he said the default position. The default position. Now, this right here is something is they may not have identified it, but it was a culture that they created in that environment of that meeting room. And this is all part of the culture that you can create with your meetings and your conversations and what you currently do in your social media. This language is very, very, very important as to how you attract. It's the bait you're using to be able to attract people to you. We use attraction marketing. We use that terminology, but the question is, are we really being attractive or are we creating resistance? And you can attract or resist based on the language you're using in the audience or the pool of people that you're fishing from. I'll use that terminology. So going back to this original conversation, long-haired hippie, no education, no background, no self-esteem, but here's what he said. If it works out 10% for you, the way it's worked out for us, it will be the best thing ever. Now, Larry said, oh, his ears opened to hear what he had to say at that point. Because before that, he was not open to hear what they would have said. If they would have said, see our fancy cars, see all the checks, how much money we have, our watches, our whatever, you understand what that language. They used a language that the audience, i.e. him, Larry Thompson, could understand. Default, 10%. He gave away 90% of the opportunity and defaulted to the 10%. Guys, we as human beings, this language still applies. Because as I mentioned to you in my story, now I'm going to take you to my story fast forward. Language, audience language behavior still applies. 28 years ago, fast forward to me, I said I was looking for a way to make an extra $800. But whenever I was answering ads in the newspaper to get to this
social media ads in the newspaper.
Okay, so I'm going to use his ads in the newspaper. We'll say that as a social media because you understand social media as a way for somebody to raise their hand to say, hey, tell me more about what you're doing. You know, Frazer was talking of this before this section in your stories, right? Your stories that you're using in your Instagram, your Facebook, what you're doing in the documentation process, you're creating curiosity for people to say, wonder what they're doing, wonder what that's all about. It's the same thing, it's just a different vehicle. So the ad that I answered inside of that newspaper could be no different than answering somebody's story on Facebook or Instagram that you're currently using. I'm trying to connect the dots so you see the relevancy in this conversation and why language is so critical whenever you've identified the audience. Now, we talk about this, and some of you may have heard this. People talk about the Thompson rule. The Thompson rule is 80%, 80, 15, and 5. 80% of your business, of your community, will be that person that wants to make an extra $500 to $1,500 per month.
The default.
The default, right? And that may even mean somebody joining just to get their products at a discount, or maybe just consuming the products or taking the products. It falls into this pool of people. Now, I want you to think about the default. 80%, I wanted 800. I fell into that 80% pool, right? So I answered an ad in the newspaper. And this is where stories, I'm so passionate about stories. I'm so passionate about how you position your stories, because whenever you understand the positioning of your story, how you can make that part of your presentation, to allow people to come to what we call a natural logical conclusion. So this story that they shared on the other end of this phone call, they told me about this couple. Now, I was born and raised in West Texas. I grew up in a trailer park. I was the girl from the other side of the tracks. I would have never seen myself as being a top earner of anything. So whenever they told me this story, and this couple that was like not very far from where we lived, that was making $10,000 a month. Now, I didn't believe for a minute that I could make $10,000 default, 10%, right? But I did believe, if they can do that much money, if they can make that much money, surely I can make 800. It's the default mechanism. It's the language that's being used. So I share that with you, so as we go through this process, that you can identify the things that you're sharing, the things that you're saying, and how you're communicating with people to create this incubator kind of culture. Remember, I said at the beginning, environment is stronger than will. I mean, that's part of why Frazer's doing this, creating this community of how he's wanting you to come into collectively together so you can build and grow your business whenever you're with like mindseted people. This is so important. So go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I appreciate you doing that because it speeds things up here. And I'm trying to watch the clock here. I don't know how much time we got. Okay. All right. And I'm going to fast forward here a little bit here because I learned my fundamentals from the original strategist, Bobby's original strategist tactician of network marketing. I learned directly from him. Okay. That led up to 1980 when Mark Hughes got a hold of me and said, hey, listen, I met him in 1978. It's kind of an interesting story. I walked into a meeting again, okay, for the first time. And guess who I met there? We both joined the same company the same night. It was Mark Hughes, the founder of Herbalife. And when he got the idea in 1980 to start Herbalife, he got a hold of me and said, hey, come on, because he was the number one distributor. I was the vice president. And I became vice president after 90 days. And he said, I want you to help me with this. And so we started putting together the format, the foundation for Herbalife. And I got to share this with you because it's very important. We both joined the same company the same night, just like Jim Rohn and I did back in 1968. Okay? So now, I want you to think about this. Audience, language, and behavior. You guys are doing such a great job with your social media platforms. It's working for you as always. But here's what you need to understand. It's got to be tied into the current audience, language, and behavior. Most of the stuff that you guys are doing out there today has been inherited from previous 2015 conceptually. Okay? And our space grew like this, especially because of social media, from about 2012 to 2015. Back then, everything worked. It didn't matter what you did. If you got on in front of the camera and burped, you got 10 people to sign up. It didn't make much difference, okay? But because it was a new medium, a delivery medium had changed. No different than when a delivery medium changed from radio to television in the 50s. It was a different delivery system. And so social media came in and was so appealing to people. And it was great. It was great. The industry grew like crazy, but the audience and language and behavior fundamentally did not grow with it. Okay, it was caught up in the people today, even in our space, in social media, are making more money than ever before. But it's addition. One who gets one who gets one. We talk about duplication, but in reality, guys, you know it as well as we do. There's very little duplication because you're teaching them a delivery system that's going to change. Whatever you're using today in social media has altered from what it was in 2015. You know it, I know. It's altered since 2018, certainly altered since 2020, okay, because of this pandemic environment. But we had a special, in 1980, we had a change coming up with Herbalife, and I think you want to share some stuff for me.
I want to say this because I think this is, whenever Larry said something very important that I want you to understand. Whenever we're talking about fundamentally, like we're talking about the foundation, we're talking about the principles, we're talking about concepts that never change. Whenever we talk about the delivery system, i.e. social media, whether that's an ad in the newspaper or that was a business card flyer or a fax machine, all of these things that we used to deliver the message, to get somebody to raise their hand to say, tell me more about what you're doing, those mechanisms have changed and evolved. The thing that hasn't changed, the thing that always remains consistent, are the fundamentals. And I want you to think about this as we're talking. It's like baseball. So baseball, now a lot of you are European, some of you are a lot European, but
You're soccer, we're baseball.
But we'll use a sports analogy, baseball. Run, hit, catch, throw. Whatever the sport is, there are fundamentals that apply to that sport that makes it work. So, and there's always nuances, fix and refine, but no matter if you start at Pee Wee baseball or up through grade school, up through college, up through the pros, the fundamentals, run, hit, catch, throw, never change. Now, you can get better at them, but the fundamentals never change. So whenever we talk about language, if we talk about audience, we talk about the things that never change, where social media evolves. If you understand these concepts and then apply it to whatever social media strategy is currently as those evolve, then you will win every time. Because now you're building on not a technique, you're building on a solid foundation of fundamental basics. Hopefully I'm communicating.
Very, very good. And by the way, these applications of techniques, where to go, what to do, and what to say, that's social media. Okay? And it's been with us all the time. It just gets faster and faster and quicker and quicker. But that means not only are you get faster and faster and quicker, it changes faster and faster and quicker. As long as whatever you're changing to and utilizing today, understand it's different than it was 6 months ago, generally speaking, it's different in another 6 months. Build on the fundamental foundation of what these principles are, understand what that current audience language and behavior is, and you're going to grow. Let me give you some, we did that with Herbal, okay? We did that. In 1980, when Mark gave me that clean slate, take this off, we were in an identical set of environmental circumstances as we are today, okay? And remember I said the audience and language behavior that I grew up in was the three-piece, whiskey drinking, cigar smoking, Cadillac driving environment. It changed. And it started in the later 70s, but by 1980 it significantly changed. And it had changed for two specific reasons that those identical circumstances were setting in today. And if you get it right, you're going to hit. And if you hit faster, you hit strong, and it will last, okay? And so here's what happened. In America, we have two very significant things going on, and both of these happened in 1978, 79, but I'm going to call it 1980 for simplicity, okay? What had happened, Amway, the grandfather of grandfathers, the number one company of all number one companies. You may not like them. I'm telling you, they're big boys. They're big dogs. Those guys are still making tons of money. Not only them, their kids, their grandkids, and their great-grandkids. Pay attention. Pay attention here. Because of the rules that were in America, okay, almost every direct sales company was put out of business after a couple of years. They tried it with Amway, okay, and Amway fought back. Long story short, in 1979, they finally won with the FTC, and that's the first time that, to my knowledge, or anybody's knowledge I've ever come to, that the term multi-level marketing, which we now refer to as network marketing, was ever used. And it said, if you operate like this, we will call you legal, and you can do and operate your business. Now, before then, what was the audience and the language and the behavior? The audience and the language behavior was three-piece suits, whiskey drinking, cigar smoking, white shoes, Cadillac driving people. Now that this is a legal type of entity, there's people that will listen to you now about this opportunity that wouldn't listen to 2 years ago. Because it's now it's a different suit, not just a shirt and tie, it's a different suit. So the audience expanded, okay, and it went from being able to be the Lamborghini bikini conversation as illustration to people that would wanted to make a little extra money.
Oh, good, it stopped
That was
raining.
one thing. Here's the second thing. Pandemic type of environment. And I know when I say this to you guys, you say, what the heck is he talking about? America. We were caught up in the Iran gasoline in America. You can only buy gas on the last digit of your license plate, even or odd day. If it was an even or odd day number, that's an even odd day. That's the only day you can buy gas. You couldn't get. There was no food in the grocery stores. There was no trucks that could move. It was a pandemic type of environment, and unemployment was 25%. Interest was 20 and 25%. It was displaced Americans by the millions that needed to make some extra money, and some of them wanted to make 80% money. A lot of them 15% money and 5% money, as we just talked about. It opened up a different audience. You know what the audience became? The long-haired hippie construction worker. And not just as an oddity, but as a reality. The stay-at-home mom, the lady truck driver, the carpet cleaner, the mattress salesman, the school teacher, okay, the waiters, the waitresses that would listen to you now, which before they would not listen to you, but they had to have the right language and behavior. We hit it on the mark, third one. We hit it on the mark, okay? And we hit it on the mark. We went to $100 million a month within 5 years period of time is what we did with that new audience language behavior. Guys, it's here again. It's here again. There's absolutely millions and millions of people that are out there today that are displaced and want to hear from you. You know what? If you can identify the audience language and behavior, they'll listen to you. But you got to be quick, and you got to be fun, you got to be simple, and you got to be magical. Let me get into a little bit more detail on that. Okay? If the audience has changed, and here the audience was already changing because of the gig economy. You hear about gig economy, and I'll tell you about network marketers. You guys are great at hijacking language and using it, putting it in your system. But it's not just the language, okay, and the phrases, and gig economy, all this. In our space, okay, in America, there's only about 6 million people in our space. Brick sales. That's it. You know how many they are in our space in the gig world? Over 60 million. In our space, the majority of the people have the Lamborghini bikini conversation going on with that smaller audience. Nothing wrong with it. It works. But what if you can adapt and get into that 60 million pool just by correcting GPSing, what I call it? And what I mean by that is this. You get in a jetliner in New York City and GPS, the navigation system for Los Angeles, can just be a few degrees off. And when you land, you're in Denver. You're not in Los Angeles. You didn't crash, you didn't burn. You're just not where you thought you'd be when you thought you'd get there. You dial it in again, a few degrees off, and you're in Phoenix, Arizona. That's what happens, okay? So if you dial that in, you have this bigger audience that you can pick from.
So just to kind of clarify some of the things that Larry's talking about here, because I think this is really important. Whenever you are identifying, when some of you, I mean, maybe over in Europe, maybe you don't necessarily understand the word gig or gig economy and what that means. And what that definition is it's somebody that wants to be positioned to make extra money around maybe their full-time job
or no job.
Because, and I'll use the example of like an Uber, Lyft, an Amazon affiliate, Airbnb, all of these little things that you guys know. You see it on coming through your feeds, advertising ways to make extra money, because we're not competing with other network marketing companies. We're actually competing in a gig economy with all these other elements and opportunities for people to be able to make that money. And so we're sharing this with you, having an understanding of who the audience is and who is available, where the biggest pool of people is that you can fish from. And whenever going back to the Thompson rule, whenever we say 80, 15, and 5, 80%, 500 to 1,500 a month, 15%, $500 to $1,500 a week, 5%, $500 to $1,500 a day. Now, think about this. Our language as a whole from network marketing has been speaking to the 5% people, the people that want to make $500 to $1,500 a day. Now, let's think about logic and reason says, if you're going to fish and if you're going to go out hunting, or if you want to speak to someone, which do you think you'll have better odds of connecting with somebody in a pool of 5% 15% or 80%? Now we know in America the numbers are 60 million, right? In Europe the numbers are, I know, 6 million plus. Now,
And just in the UK.
just in the UK, that's not counting any other country. So I haven't done the research on all the countries, but I'm giving it to you as an example. So let's say, what language are you using to attract people into your business? So this is a question to evaluate yourself in. Do I make this fun, simple, magical? Do I allow, is my onboarding process of the people that I'm bringing into my opportunity conducive for a long-haired hippie construction worker,
Stay-at-home mom.
a stay-at-home mom? I want you to think about this because this is all part of the behavior that you are trying to create that allows for that incubator process. Because here's what I want you. I'm going to go back to Larry's story and my story, and Simon and even Frazer. He talks about it. If you listen to what's being said, whenever you create this environment that allows for the 10%, because he had somebody that was, i.e. Bobby, i.e. Jim, that saw in him, believed in him, and saw a vision until he had the belief that he could do it himself. And I always say belief determines behavior. And a lot of times the reason why people don't start, or the reason why people don't believe or don't even continue, is because they don't believe they're good enough. So you have to create this environment that allows for somebody like Larry, long-haired hippie construction worker, like me, stay-at-home mom, that believes, hey, I believed I could make $800. I never believed I could be a six-figure top earner or anything, but I did believe just enough to make me take a step into that environment that I could do that and I could win, right? It's getting them into that environment that's conducive to growth, that's conducive, that allows for them to evolve. That's how you get the 15 percenters. That's how you get the 5 percenters. Because the activity, they incubate. The activity is the same. If the activity is the same, because as a distributor, your job description, yours, not your team's, not anybody else's, is one thing. So it doesn't matter if you're just getting started or you're quadruple, double dip, diamond, platinum, sprinkled with diamond with pixie dust. Doesn't matter. Your job description is the same, and that is to get customers on your product or service and to get new people on your team and building a team. That's your only job description. So you have to stay focused on doing your job description, right? Because if you're doing your job description, that means the people that you're bringing in will be doing their job description. So it has to be conducive to create this environment for people to evolve.
You don't have to change what you're doing in social media, okay? If it's working for you, continue. What you have to understand is the audience is, in America, gets 6 million in our space, and it's declining, okay? Regardless of what we talk about, how great network marketing is, it's declining because it's only competing with the 6 million each company from company to company, okay? But the gig economy in America has over 60 million people in it that want to, and they have a necessity to do something extra today. They're not committed to hardly anything. We talk about getting influencers in our business, okay? Let me tell you something. We think of influencers as celebrities. We think of influencers that have this big following. And the more influence you have and the more people you're influencing, you do these social media things, you're going to do great with it if you adapt to audience language and behavior. But here's the thing you got to understand about 80-55. Okay? We're all influencers. Sometimes we're influencing 3 people. Sometimes it's 30. Sometimes it's 300. Sometimes it's 33,000 or 30,000. We're all influencers. 60 million of them is all influencers doing something. Okay? And if we try to influence them to make them a marketer like you instead of a networking marketer to get those handful of customers and incubate, Guess who started off as an 80%er? Me. You're looking at her over here. Mark Hughes, the founder of Herbalife. You know who else started off as an 80%er? Bobby DePue. Jim Rohn earning $57 a week. Okay? We all started off and we incubated in an environment that got us to understand the current audience language of AI. And right now, no matter how great your products are, I'm going to tell you something. There's a product out there right now that supersedes everybody's product. And it's available to every one of you to add to whatever you're doing, social media, whatever you're doing. The biggest commodity right now that millions and millions and millions of people, you know where they come from? They're displaced because of the pandemic environment. They're displaced and they're looking for something, and now their priorities have changed. It's no longer the Lamborghini bikini only. And that works over here at 6 million, the same as always. And it always will. But if you go over here and you look at this 60 million pool, okay, and you identify that and you put in the right audience language and behavior, let me tell you something. That's where you don't duplicate. You go beyond addition at one getting one. Social media is great at one getting one. You try and teach one to teach what you do, it's very hard. Then you try and get duplication. That's almost impossible. I'm talking multiplication. That's how you build $1 million company. Listen, and that's how it's done. It's not this. What I'm talking about, guys. It isn't theory. It isn't what could happen. This is stuff that I've done for 54 years. I know it works. I know how it works, and it's never been disputed.
Hey, I just have to brag because we just had the Direct Selling News Top 100 recognition. Larry was recognized on the cover of Direct Selling News as a 50-year legend. And the International Bravo Award went to the companies that he helped start, Herbalife and PM International. And so that's not a coincidence. That comes from fundamentals: run, hit, catch, throw. That's what millionaire training was. Guys, this is how to employ yourself, right? What's in the mental projector? These are things, these are life skills that you apply to no matter what company, no matter what product, no matter what compensation plan, that will serve you no matter what you're doing. So, as we leave here today, I just want to tie this up for you, because I think that as just equipping you with the understanding of this is that whenever you think about where you are and you think about what no matter what you learn with this group and what you learn throughout this weekend, it's all going to have incredible value. But I want you to bring it down to the lowest common denominator and look at and be willing to look at yourself in the mirror and say, am I doing my job description every day? Because if you're doing your job description every day and then you apply all of these other things into your business, whatever it's Instagram, TikTok, whatever that is, as long as you're doing the basics, I promise you, if you focus on that and that activity every single day, you can't help but grow. If you keep your language to where you are communicating with the masses, guys, you don't have to be making $10,000 a month. You could be making $500 a month right now. You could be making $200 a month right now and recruit with that story all day long. Your story is good enough. You are good enough. You have what it takes. You're tall enough. You're short enough. You're young enough. You're old enough. You are good enough right this minute. You don't have to learn more. You just have to go do more. That's it. So, guys, I think we did our 45 minutes.
Oh, my goodness.
And I think we may have went over, Frazer, and I'm so sorry if we did.
But we're done. Unless you want to ask some questions or your audience wants to ask some questions, we're finished. I don't even
Yes,
know if
sir.
we're ever on.
Brilliant.